Over the past few years, there's one series of vintage lenses that has experienced a revival from today's cinematographers looking to expand their craft. The Helios 44. Often praised for its unique character and bokeh, this Soviet lens has stood the test of time. It is one of the most popular and sought-after camera optics ever, and its rich history dates back to the rising power of the Soviet Union during World War II. In June of 1941, World War II began to impact the Soviet Union when Hitler invaded the USSR. Prior to the start of the war, the Soviet Union relied on companies such as Zeiss, Leica, Canon, Pentax, Fuji, and Nikon to import optical equipment, primarily binoculars at the time. These companies were all based in Axis powers nations, forcing the Soviets to seek new manufacturing methods. In February of 1942, the USSR ordered the creation of a new optical plant, the Krasnogorsk Mechanical Works, or KMZ. Fast forward to 1945, and the Soviet Union had successfully began occupying Eastern Germany. Upon their control of Jena, Germany, the home of Zeiss optics, they retrieved Zeiss lens formulas and began using them to create their own optics from home. At the time, Zeiss, specifically with their Biotar 58mm lens, had developed a strong reputation for lenses that were sharp and durable with fast apertures. They sat at the top of the market at the time, but the Soviet Union's possession of their formula transferred much of that power over to KMZ manufacturing. And that's where the Helios 44 series began. Come 1958, KMZ began mass-producing what was essentially a cheaper and less refined knockoff of the Zeiss Biotar lens. Their attempt to get camera equipment into the hands of the masses in the USSR was driven by the idea that an abundant amount of photography from the Soviet public would promote a nation thriving and renewed after war victory. From 1958 to 1999, many iterations of the Helios 44 entered circulation, ultimately becoming one of the most mass-produced camera lenses in the world. With an increased demand for vintage camera gear today, the Helios 44 has been revived, starting a new life with an application for digital cinematography and modern modifications. Thanks to my Professor Ko, I was able to test out his Helios 44M that was modified with a cinema gear ring, ovular aperture insert, and EF mount. But why would we seek a lens that is objectively flawed? After all, the lens sacrificed a lot of sharpness and clarity in favor of cheap mass production. Well, in comparison to modern, visually perfect and sharp lenses, the imperfections of the Helios 44 give it character. Its uncoated glass surface creates unique, sometimes unpredictable lens flares and washouts that often dirty up the image, here assisted by the anamorphic qualities of this model's ovular modification. This is in addition to a swirl effect of the bokeh within the out-of-focus parts of the image. This visual quality has been a large reason for this lens's cult following. The bokeh tends to bend towards the edge of an image at fast apertures, creating background separation and drawing attention to a centered subject. This results in a dreamlike quality that is difficult to replicate in modern lenses without using modifications. Dreamlike is probably the best way to describe this lens. It's imperfect, but even its imperfections have beauty. Soft focus shots are still engaging and full of texture and haze. This lens may not be able to do it all, but it was never really meant to. When the Soviets sent the Helios 44 series into production, they wanted as many people as possible to have access to shooting at an affordable price. Even nearing 70 years and many iterations later, that is still the case today on a worldwide scale. This lens has become a cult classic option for photographers and cinematographers hoping to bring a higher sense of character to their work, and its rich history is only becoming richer in the 21st century.